Coming up on Network Africa. At least 44 people have been confirmed dead after a boat carrying dozens of passengers capsized on Lake Kariba in Zimbabwe. A military funeral holds for former head of Libya's military intelligence, Major General Fawaz al-Mansouri, after being killed in a car bombing. At least 17 people killed, dozens more injured after two buses carrying workers collide in Egypt's Ismaila governorate. Thanks for joining us on the program. I'm Amarachi Bubani. We begin in Zimbabwe, where scores of people have died after a ferry sank on Lake Kariba. At least 44 people have been confirmed dead, with search and rescue operations now intensifying. Police say the vessel, designed to carry 90 passengers and 5 crew members, overturned after being hit by a strong wave. Officials say 77 people have been rescued, while 44 bodies have so far been recovered. The number of people on board remains unclear, with registered tickets showing 114 adult passengers, while a lake official reported that as many as 120 people, including children, may have been on the ferry. President Emerson Mnangagwa has declared a state of disaster, allowing additional resources, including military and police units, to be deployed for the search. And in Egypt, 17 people have been killed, 31 others injured after two buses carrying workers collided in Ismaila governorate. Egypt's health ministry says the injured suffered fractures, lacerations and internal bleeding. 10 people have been discharged, while others remain in hospital, including 7 in critical condition. The crash is the latest deadly road accident to hit Egypt, where official figures show 5,829 people were killed in road crashes last year. Authorities are investigating the cause of the collision. Meanwhile, senior Libyan National Army officials gathered in Benghazi for the funeral of military intelligence chief Fawzi al-Mansouri, who was killed in a car bombing. The Libyan National Army says an explosive attached to al-Mansouri's vehicle detonated after he left a mosque. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack. General al-Mansouri was a key figure in the Libyan National Army's fight against jihadist groups in eastern Libya. He later took part in the 2019 offensive to capture Tripoli. His assassination raises fresh security concerns in eastern Libya and could further complicate efforts to unify the country's rival authorities. Libya has remained politically divided since the 2011 uprising that toppled Muammar Gaddafi. Let's talk health matters now to the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which has reportedly claimed more than 2,000 lives. The death toll doubling in just 20 days, according to the United Nations. UN spokesperson Farhan Haq says health authorities are recording an average of about 50 deaths every day as efforts to expand treatment and disease surveillance continue. The World Health Organization says between 60 and 70% of Ebola deaths occur in communities, with many patients reaching health facilities too late. The response is also being hampered by insecurity. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says at least 13 civilians have been killed and thousands displaced after an attack in Ituri province on August 7. The UN is calling for the protection of civilians and safe and sustained humanitarian access to communities facing both conflict and the deadly outbreak.
Turning to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, our colleagues at the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs tell us that efforts to expand treatment and surveillance continue, as the Ebola outbreak has reportedly claimed more than 2,000 lives. According to national health authorities, the number of reported deaths has doubled over the past 20 days, with an average of about 50 deaths recorded each day. The World Health Organization reports that between 60 and 70% of Ebola-related deaths occur in communities, with many patients reaching health facilities too late or unable to access care in time. We, along with our partners, continue to support the response, but our work is hindered by insecurity. OCHA tells us that according to local sources, at least 13 civilians were killed, several others were abducted, and homes were burned during an attack on August 7th in the village of Bananakol in Ituri. More than 28,000 people fled their homes towards Mombasa Center, where 36,000 people are already seeking shelter since April. OCHA and our partners continue to support the authorities and assess needs in impacted areas. We reiterate our call on all parties to the conflict to protect civilians and facilitate safe and sustained humanitarian access to communities impacted by both violence and the outbreak.
Politics on the continent now. Tens of thousands of supporters of Zambia's ruling United Party for National Development filled Lusaka for President Hakainde Hichilema's final campaign rally ahead of Thursday's election. President Hichilema is seeking a second 5-year term, promising voters that his government's achievements, including free education and new jobs in the public sector, should be allowed to continue. But jobs and the rising cost of living remains major concerns, with critics saying economic growth has yet to improve living conditions for many Zambians. His main challenger, Brian Mundubule, has also accused the authorities of intimidating opposition figures, allegations the government has not responded to in the material provided. With Thursday's vote fast approaching, Zambians will decide whether to give Hichilema another term or hand over power to the opposition. The United States Senate has approved a 2-year extension of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, or AGOA, keeping duty-free access to the U.S. market for more than 1,800 products from eligible African countries. The extension will remain in place until December 2028, providing relief for African businesses that rely on exports to the United States. AGOA has been a key part of U.S.-Africa trade relations for 25 years, allowing the United States to import billions of dollars worth of products, including cars, clothing, and other goods, from 32 sub-Saharan African countries. The current agreement was due to expire at the end of September. U.S. Senator Raphael Warnock, who helped secure the extension, said the move would support economic stability and strengthen U.S. relations with African partners. I want to bring in now national security and foreign relations law expert Joanna LeBlanc. She joins us from Washington, D.C. Joanna, great to see you, and thanks for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you for having me, Amarachi.
So the United States has just extended the African Growth and Opportunity Act for another 2 years. Why was a 2-year extension considered the right decision rather than a longer-term renewal that would give African businesses greater certainty?
Well, it has been there has been an extension in the Senate, as you said, led by Senator Warnock, but it now goes back to the House to be passed, which we expect that will happen, and then goes to the president for signature. But I think it's important to note that it is a continuing resolution. It was not a standalone bill. So AGOA was extended as it has been for the past 25 years. So what that means is that there's an opportunity for AGOA to be modernized, for advocates and countries and businesses to lobby to ensure that AGOA after 2028 when it is renewed again, if it is renewed again, that it complements the African Continental Free Trade Area and does not undermine it, right? Because I think that if you combine the AFCFTA and AGOA together, I think there could be a great deal of businesses that can grow. Manufacturing, you're talking about value-added manufacturing across the African continent that can be done in agro-processing and textiles and brought into the U.S. market.
Right. And for countries such as Nigeria, Joanna, Nigeria's struggle to fully exploit the opportunities of AGOA. What does the U.S. believe needs to change on the African side to make the agreement even more effective?
Sure. I think back to the first question you asked me, I think it's important to also note the geopolitics as well in this, as we know that China has increased its footprint significantly across the African continent. In fact, Africa-China trade in 2025 was announced to be at more than 10 billion USD. So that is pretty significant. And I think the United States is looking to catch up. And this is the preference program is a form of commercial diplomacy to see how the U.S. can continue to strengthen its commercial and its diplomatic relations with African continent. And now back to the second question. Unfortunately, Nigeria, when you talk about AGOA, about 98% of the products that have been exported into the U.S. market have been in petroleum, right? So I think that there is great opportunity for Nigeria to consider other areas for production, create manufacturing jobs in Nigeria, create the products in the country in different sectors and bring them into the American market. You're talking about a country with 365 million. So it's a significant market. It's pretty big, right? I know that in 2022, in terms of export, Nigeria brought in about $1.2 billion. But the reality is that if you have countries where there isn't reliable electricity, there isn't reliable systems in place to make sure that the products that are being created across the African continent can actually enter into the U.S. market and actually meet U.S. standards, then it's going to be rather difficult. But I think that's where the African Continental Free Trade Area, it is important that we ensure that we have an AGOA that is modernized and complements the AFCFTA.
Finally, Joanna, AGOA was designed, of course, to deepen those economic ties between the United States and Africa. You've rightly explained and expatiated on that. But after more than 2 decades, you believe that this agreement has delivered the kind of transformation that Washington originally envisioned?
I think it's one thing to provide market access, right? But I think it's also important that the U.S. Provides more capital for investments, related projects across the continent. Because yes, you have access to the market, right? But when you don't have the proper infrastructure, it makes it very difficult to take advantage of this particular access that you have. And also too, we must think about the tariffs, right? Because just because AGOA gives you market access treatment does not mean that if the executive were to impose tariffs, you would not be impacted. So I think that when it comes to the unpredictability nature of how this administration imposes tariffs, and we know that the administration uses tariffs as a negotiation tool, I think that, so it's not just about making sure that you provide preference access to the market, but also too there needs to be some level of stability in terms in the environment, right? And countries should not worry about today's 10% tariffs, tomorrow it's 3%, next day it's 20%. So I think we need to have some kind of consistency in terms of our imposition of tariffs on this side. But I think again, ultimately, countries can leverage AGOA. But in particular, Nigeria, I think it's important that we ensure that the products that we're looking to export into the U.S. market actually meet the U.S. standards, and that there is actually electricity and the various structures in place so that products can be manufactured in the country and then brought into the U.S. market.
Joanna, thank you again for joining us for this discussion. Appreciate your analysis on Network Africa.
Thank you so much, Amarachi. Always a pleasure.
All right. We're off on a short break now on Network Africa. Still ahead. The world marking the 2026 International Youth Day, Nigeria's Cross River State government reaffirms commitment to empowering young people across the state.
Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others.
Welcome back. You're watching Network Africa on Channels Television. Chad has marked the 66th anniversary of its independence with a military parade in the capital in N'Djamena. President Mahamat Idris Itno has led the commemorations, laying a wreath at the memorial before watching units from the armed and security forces marching through Place de la Nation, beg your pardon. The parade included personnel from the Army, Air Force, National Gendarmerie, and other security services. Foreign delegations, including the leaders of Madagascar and Guinea-Bissau, also attending the ceremony. Officials are using the occasion to reflect on the country's progress while acknowledging the need for further development. Chad gained independence from France on August 11, 1960. Let's come back home for a second. The need for independent institutions, fair elections, and political parties that uphold democratic values came under the spotlight during the panel session of the 2026 Goodluck Jonathan Democracy Dialogue, which took place in Bauchi State in northern Nigeria. Retired Justice of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, Justice Amina Auji, and Ghanaian politician and chairman of the National Democratic Congress, Johnson Nketia, stressed the need for strong, independent institutions and credible electoral processes, which remain critical to sustaining democracy.
Let us not deceive ourselves. There's nothing like African democracy. What purpose does it serve that when millions of people have voted, then 5 people will come to decide either in favor or against the decision of millions of people? Is that democracy?
In Switzerland, there is no one person that is the overall boss at any particular time. You have few people that make up what I may describe as a presidential college. So no one person take a decision that affects the whole country. Any sensitive decision must be taken by all these people. And I know I hosted one of them when I was the vice president. And he said that their forefathers believed that when one person has so much powers, it is dangerous to society.
We'll head on to Southern Africa, which has written to the governments of Nigeria, Malawi, and Ethiopia requesting reimbursement for the repatriation costs of their citizens. This follows anti-illegal immigration protests earlier this year, during which several countries repatriated their nationals from South Africa. According to the Department of Home Affairs, about 600 foreign nationals were deported from the Lindela Repatriation Center in the previous financial year. Between April and July this year, 16,078 people were deported. For the 2025 financial year, 69 Nigerians were deported through Lindela, and for the 2026-2027, only 24 Nigerians were deported.
We have also written to the government of Malawi, and of course the embassies of Nigeria and Ethiopia, requesting reimbursements of this cost through the Department of DERCO, and we are anticipating responses from those governments. So if you look at the financial implications with regards to Lindela, the current capacity, it's 4,000. It's been hovering around 1,500, and then it's times around 2,000. This is in the middle. We provide the daily rate for the food rations that are provided. Our budget for Lindela, for the deportations for this financial year is currently 57 million. Obviously, with the exercise that we've been undertaking would have gone beyond that budget, which therefore required us to write to the Minister of Finance asking for reprioritization of certain budget line items.
Meanwhile, recurring xenophobic attacks on African migrants in South Africa are renewing concerns over African unity and regional integration. At a Pan-African roundtable in Lagos, the League of Nigerian Colonists, alongside scholars, diplomats and media practitioners, examined the roots of migration and xenophobia with calls for stronger governance and economic opportunities across the continent.
The federal government has not taken any step that I consider that I think it should take. I think it should engage the South African government more. I am opposed to going after the 120 companies owned by South Africa in Nigeria. I do not believe in reciprocity in that respect, because if you go around, if that happens, Africa will be destroyed. We have to do something to build coexistence in Africa. But there are other ways of dealing with these things. It is not just by saying an eye for an eye. An eye for an eye philosophy is not good for Africans. We must all work towards solving these problems in a manner that other countries, other citizens will respect us as civilized human beings.
In South Africa, government appears to be abdicating its role that allows people to take to the street, because in reality, citizens should be voting right into their parliaments, and perhaps immigration forces, whether it's police, whether it's special force, should be in charge of things, not citizens marching and looting and burning or taking laws into their hand or revolting or resorting to anarchy. There's some kind of soft diplomacy that can be done. I think South Africans in the diaspora, South African businesses that are international, South African government need to invest in reorientation of South Africans. They need to find a way to explain to people why they shouldn't be that barbaric, because that is what they are. I also think governments of individual African countries and collectively the African Union should find a way to let the government of South Africa and the people of South Africa through their government know that it is wrong to behave that way, and this thing have consequences.
The world is marking the 2026 International Youth Day. Nigeria's Cross River State government reaffirmed its commitment to empowering young people through skills development, entrepreneurship, technology and innovation. Commissioner for Youth and Development, Ijom Ukam, who was speaking at a press conference in Calabar, explained that the government would deepen partnerships with communities, local institutions, the private sector and other stakeholders to create more opportunities for young people. Ukam noted that young people across the state are already demonstrating their potential through businesses, sports, music and innovative solutions.
As a ministry, we remain committed to building a youth development framework that is inclusive, ensuring that opportunities reach young people across the 18 local governments of Cross River State, skills-oriented, preparing young people for real economic opportunities, employment-focused, creating pathways for training to decent work, entrepreneurship-driven, supporting young people to become job creators, partnership-based, leveraging government, private sector, and development partner resources, innovation-led, embracing technology and emerging sectors, participatory, giving young people a voice in policies and programs affecting them, and finally, sustainable, ensuring that youth development intervention create lasting value rather than temporary and cosmetic benefits. The International Youth Day reminds us that the future belongs to the young. But I could challenge that familiar statement. The future does not merely belong to the young people. Young people are already shaping the present. They are building businesses. They are creating innovations. They are competing in sports. They are creating music, film, and digital content. Our responsibility as government is to create an enabling environment in which this potential can flourish.
And as we end the program today, here's our fun fact for Wednesday. Did you know that Egypt was an ancient powerhouse of innovation beyond inventing papyrus and the world's first paper-like writing material? Egypt also developed a 365-day solar calendar in 12 months of 30 days plus 5 festival days designed to predict the precise annual flooding of the Nile. Information you did not have, but now you know. Thanks for watching Network Africa. I am Amarachi.